We are recording.
Welcome to today's AEM Center webinar. I'm Cynthia Curry, Director of the AEM Center, and it's my pleasure to introduce part 3 of the AEM Center's webinar series on the AEM quality indicators for K-12. The slide deck and the digital handout for today's presentation are available on the event page of the AEM Center website. That's available as a bit.ly/QI series Part 3. Really encourage you to download the slide deck and the digital handout for this presentation, because not only does it provide the PowerPoint, which you are free to use in your own learning opportunities and technical assistance, which is what this session is all about, but there are no hyperlinks embedded within the PowerPoint. All of the resources are available through the digital handout. So please grab both of those documents from the AEM Center website. Before we begin, there are a few things about the Zoom environment that we wanted you to know. First, closed captioning is available. If you don't see them, you'll need to turn them on. You want to click the closed caption button in your Zoom menu, and then your captions will appear along the bottom of your screen. I just want to shout out again to Casey, who's our caption provider today. Thank you so much for your service. We want to make sure that you contribute to the conversation. Everybody's audio is muted because of the typical background noise that happens during webinars. We really want to hear from you, so please use the chat. If you haven't tested it out, you want to choose the chat button from your Zoom controls, and you'll note that there is a blue menu just above where you enter text. On that blue drop down, you can choose to chat with people privately. So if there's somebody here that you want to say hello to, but you don't want everybody to be part of that conversation, you can do that. But please, when you are answering some questions that we may have, we'll be asking your input on some things and really want you to be asking some questions and sharing your concerns. Please make sure that all panelists and attendees is selected from that blue drop-down menu. And many thanks to Leslie O'Callaghan, the AEM Center Operations Coordinator, who is going to be dropping links into the chat, and she'll also be helping with monitoring that. If you're tweeting during the webinar, we'd love for you to use our hashtag AEM4All, AEM numeral 4 all. It's not the AEM Center's hashtag, but it's our favorite. That's the one that we go to, and that's the one that we love to follow, and others follow that as well when it comes to accessible educational materials. And then lastly, this webinar is being recorded. You'll find the recording on the AEM Center website on the event page. Leslie will be sending out an email notification when that's ready. So let the presentation begin. We've moved on to part 3 of the quality indicator series. Parts 1 and 2 covered the first 2 quality indicators, or the first 3 quality indicators. And today we're looking at quality indicator 4, delivering professional learning opportunities and technical assistance. As a reminder, if you have been following along with this series, or if you're just jumping in here at part 3, there are 7 quality indicators that make up our guidance for providing accessible educational materials to students who need them in a timely manner. Those are 7 really comprehensive quality indicators, and under each of them is a series of critical components. So the first quality indicator is to have a coordinated system for providing students with accessible educational materials and accessible technologies, that those are provided in a timely manner, quality indicator 2. Quality indicator 3 is that there are written guidelines that support that provision. For lots of different reasons, of course. We want to make sure that there are procedures in place, that when there may be somebody who leaves the system, that the documentation is there to make sure that whatever role of responsibility they had becomes filled, making sure that there are comprehensive methods to make sure that students are provided with AIM in a timely manner. All of that requires policies, protocols, and being provided within written guidelines. So 1, 2, and 3 were previously delivered. Part 1 covered a coordinated system in timely manner. That was on February 5th, and written guidelines was part 2 of our quality indicator series. That was February 13th. We're now at quality indicator 4, comprehensive learning opportunities and technical assistance. What type of training, technical assistance, workshops, Twitter chats, webinars. What are the different ways, multiple varieties, to make sure that the people who are responsible, as well as the beneficiaries of efforts to make sure that students receive materials in accessible formats, technologies with features that they need in a timely manner, what are the various ways that we can accomplish that? And we have some representatives from Ohio, from Indiana, and from Texas here today who are going to share with us how they've accomplished that. And they would say that it is an ongoing, continuous improvement process. So they're going to share with us what are they doing now, and what would they do differently? What are their plans for the future? Quality indicators 5 and 6, all about data collection and use. So collecting the data, what are the methods? What are some of the strategies? What are some of the tools that can be used? And then how do you use those data for continuous improvement? That webinar will be on March 26th. And then quality indicator 7 is the last part of our series, allocation of resources. How do you make sure that there's human, fiscal, and infrastructural resources in place to make all of this come together, this whole system? And that is on April 2nd. And I just wanted to do a shout out to the image that's on the screen. It is it's a way that we convey the 7 quality indicators, and they are each represented as a gear. So there are 7 gears, each one unique to the quality indicator that it's representing, and they work together. You know, they churn as a system, because each of these indicators doesn't operate in and of itself. They really need to be working together as a network. So while we are breaking this up into 5 different parts, we have coupled some things that go together, like having a coordinated system, providing those materials in a timely manner within that system. We've combined quality indicators 5 and 6, which are both related specifically to data and best practices for collecting and using data. So we've separated out these quality indicators in a logical way, but they all really need to be working together. So we hope that if you haven't been able to follow along, or you won't have the opportunity to attend all these webinars live, that you'll take advantage of the recordings and the materials that go with them. The objectives for today, I've already alluded to this a little bit, but to make sure that we cover everything that you want to get out of today's webinar, we would like you to be able to explain in your own words the intent behind quality indicator 4. There is a statement, there's an intent to the quality indicator, and there are several components. And it's not a matter of memorizing those. I myself would not be able to cite quality indicator 4, the intent or all the critical components, but we want to make sure that you're able to articulate that quality indicator in a way that makes sense and will support you in influencing others to start adopting our quality indicators. Learn from the experience and practice of other states and districts. In this case, we have 2 states and 1 school district, so that you can improve your own learning opportunities, trainings that you do within your own settings. And then also, of course, know where to go to build more background knowledge and to collect further resources. Please be doing that in the chat. And we know that there's a lot of good things going on out there across the country, within states, districts, within individual schools. So please be sharing those throughout the webinar. We have a number of presenters. I have let you know where they're from, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves individually when they get to their part of the presentation. But we have Daniel McNulty, who's the State Director of Patents. We have 3 representatives from Ohio. Sarah Boney, who is the Education Program Specialist for the Office for Exceptional Children at the Ohio Department of Education. Jan Rogers, Program Director for the AEM Center in Ohio. Rachel Schultz, who's the AIM Specialist at the AEM Center in Ohio. And Jessica McKay, who's an AT Specialist in Ysleta Independent School District in Texas, right outside of or in El Paso. Thank you all for being here. Little bit about quality indicator 4. Each one of our quality indicators has a statement which describes the quality indicator, followed by the intent. So why is that quality indicator important? Kind of fleshes out the meaning behind the statement. And then there are a series of critical components. So what we have on the screen here is the statement and its intent. So the quality indicator for a statement is that the agency provides or arranges for comprehensive learning opportunities and technical assistance that address all aspects of the need, selection, acquisition, and use of accessible materials and technologies. So comprehensive learning opportunities and technical assistance really are at the heart of quality indicator 4, and we know that states, districts, and schools are doing a lot of innovative professional development for teachers. We're just saying that accessibility of materials and technologies need to be a part of that. We are advocates for that topic of accessibility to be embedded in what is already going on for initiatives within your district. But in many cases, it's appropriate for these types of trainings to happen in parallel. The intent for quality indicator 4 is that ongoing learning opportunities and technical assistance will draw from multiple sources, offered in different forms, such as coaching, presentations, webinars, briefs, book studies, and range from introductory to advanced to reach all stakeholders. So the same principles of adult learning, professional development, engaging teachers, engaging other stakeholders, students, families, all apply here under quality indicator 4. Some examples of the components that are a way for you to mark or benchmark what are the kind of activities and resources that you may have within your system, whether that's a state, a district, a school. That these are some things to be looking for as markers of an effective learning opportunity offerings within your setting. So there are targeted topics. So legal issues, decision-making tools, what are some considerations around acquisition and procurement of accessible materials and technologies? So rather than having sort of a general, general session around accessibility, really getting targeted and targeted with your objectives as well. Targeted audiences, so who are you trying to reach? So whether it's administrators, educators, media specialists, technology directors, families, the students, all of those audiences require deliberate considerations in what their needs are and the way that they prefer to learn. Leveraging your local, state, and national resources, using multiple means and formats of delivery, complying, of course, with accessibility standards and local expectations as part of the delivery of your learning opportunities, and involving internal and external collaborators. So I'm really excited to bring some of our experts who have been working with the AEM Center and we with them for a number of years so that they can share how they have pulled together quality indicator 4 and some of the demonstrations of what they've produced and what they've delivered. So before we go to Daniel, who's going to start us off, just wanted to do a self-reflection of within your own setting in that very brief introduction to quality indicator 4. Where are you currently with implementing the components under quality indicator 4 in your setting? Have you not started? Are some of these components somewhat part of professional development and considerations for accessibility in your setting? Or are you really cooking? Do you have a lot going on, a lot of pots and pans going? You've got a lot of investment in your setting to include learning opportunities, training and technical assistance for accessibility. And just a reminder that with this webinar series, we do have a flip model. So in the description, we do suggest that people go ahead of the webinar and do some studying. Do some homework around the quality indicator that's being discussed during the webinar, and then come with that background knowledge and get an idea of how you might implement the quality indicator. We know not everybody has time, not everybody comes to class having done their homework, and we're adults, so we understand that. But just a reminder that these resources are going to remain on our website, obviously, for continued study. So does anybody want to say a little bit? So Jane's saying having problems getting it into or getting the info to your districts, to your local education agencies. Great. We have a somewhat, okay, John Brant's, it's working now. I'm assuming that has to do with something technical and not your although maybe your learning opportunities are working too, John. I know they are for you in Maine. Great. All right. Well, please keep adding to the chat as we go along. I'm going to move into our first presentation, and but there's one clarification. I apologize. I know Daniel has been waiting for to start his story from Indiana. Just a quick clarification that when we're talking about AIM, there are two ways you may have seen this in your state and your district. AEM and AIM. AEM is accessible educational materials, and AIM is accessible instructional materials. Just wanted to say that regardless of what the origins of these two terms may be, we use them interchangeably in this context. So if you have AIM, for example, in your IEP forms within your state, please know that that applies in this context. So whether you see AEM or AIM, we're talking about the same thing, making sure that students have their materials and their technologies in ways that they can access. So having said that, we're going to move on to Indiana. Thanks for your patience, Daniel.
Sure, no problem. So I think I'm unmuted. Can you hear me now, Cynthia?
Yes, you sound great.
Well, thank you. So I'm Daniel McNulty. I'm the director of the Patents Project here in Indiana. I'm going to tell you a little bit about patents and what we do and how we do things, and specifically how that refers to the AIM Quality Indicator 4 and providing opportunities for professional growth and learning in the state of Indiana. Oh, do you have, there we go. So this is one of my favorite slides, and it's a slide that I show in just about everything that I do, and it's because I'm visual, and this kind of makes sense for me. And I think these are three terms that often get confused, along with lots of the other acronyms and alphabet soup that we have to deal with, and especially in special education. But these three terms in particular are really what the Patents Project deals with in the state of Indiana. And so if we start on the far left, we've got UDL, or Universal Design for Learning, and that's a spiral ramp. It is a ramp, and that's the important part. It's the Guggenheim Museum, and the important piece of that is that it was built from the ground up to be as accessible as possible, because it is a ramp. So I can walk up a ramp, I can roll up a ramp, I can somersault up a ramp, I can break dance up a ramp. There's lots of ways I can get up a ramp, but if that had been built from the ground up with stairs, of course, there's only one way to get up the stairs, and that's walk. So the premise behind designing something with the widest range of flexibility from the ground up as possible is Universal Design for Learning. And it looks at the principles, and it looks at the curriculum and the environment and the materials as being potentially broken and needing to be fixed in some way, rather than looking at students as being broken. So I really like that philosophy. In the middle, we've got the ICAM, and that's in Indiana, that's Accessible Educational Materials. That's the Indiana Center for Accessible Materials, which is part of the Patents Project, and of course, those are the materials themselves. And then on the far right, the picture of Band-Aids, I realize sometimes makes assistive technology professionals mad until I explain why. And so that's assistive tech. And so if somebody's hurt in my classroom, I don't put one Band-Aid over the whole classroom of students. I put one Band-Aid on one student, and on that one particular injury on that one student. And then it's going to get old, and it's going to fall off, and it's going to have to be replaced. So that's incredibly useful. Those Band-Aids are very useful, but they have to be replaced. And that's assistive tech to me. So assistive tech is one person, and it's usually for one barrier for that one person at a time, and it's going to get old and have to be updated and get broken and have to be replaced. And so we kind of have two ends of the spectrum there, with UDL on one end and assistive tech on the other end, serving similar purposes, but also a bit different. With UDL being there for everyone all the time, and assistive tech being very purposeful for one student at a time, and usually for one barrier for that one student at a time. So those three terms really kind of sum up what the patent. You can go ahead, Cynthia. Sorry. Those three terms kind of sum up what the Patents Project does in Indiana. And underneath that umbrella of UDL, AIM, and AT, we do several things where to offer opportunities for learning and growth to LEAs in the state of Indiana. And so I've listed most of them here, starting with our Aiming for Achievement grant, which is an intensive district-specific technical assistance grant that I'm going to talk a little bit more deeply about on the next slide. And underneath that, we are also the NIMAS authorized user for the state of Indiana, and that's our ICAM, our Indiana Center for Accessible Materials. We do a lot of universal design for learning specific training, and starting in 2002, Patents actually had a UDL pilot program, and we ran that from 2002 to 2010. And so we don't have that exact pilot program anymore, but we've incorporated it into the first bullet point, which is our Aiming for Achievement intensive technical assistance. We do a lot of assistive technology technical assistance as well, and to help support that, we have lending libraries where we loan out hardware and software for 6 weeks at a time for schools to try things and take data and get work samples and see what works and what doesn't work, send it back, borrow something else before requesting a purchase of a device or software from their district. So we do a lot of professional development and workshops, and a lot of those are we schedule ahead of time, so you can go to our calendar and see. And I think there's a document with all the links, Cynthia.
There is. So in the digital handout, there is everything that if Daniel refers to something, a resource that's on the Patents website, you'll find it there. So your calendar, your professional development calendar, the link to that is in the digital handout.
Perfect. Thank you. So we schedule a lot of these types of trainings that are maybe a mix of more traditional trainings face-to-face where somebody's standing in front of a group, and also webinars, so online trainings sort of doing the same thing. But then we've also been doing a lot more of the patent specialists going into classrooms over the last few years and working with 1 or 2 or 3 teachers and a group of students at the same time, and possibly a few paraprofessionals as well. And while I think that sort of professional development is much more difficult to do and not as efficient, I do think it's more effective. And so we've been doing more of that lately. And we have 2 statewide conferences a year, one in the fall that's in November. So this coming year, it'll be November 20th and 21st, and that's all implementation. And then we have a Tech Expo in the spring, and this year that's April 4th. And registration is open for that, and that's all vendors. That's all assistive technology and family-oriented vendors, and that's free to come to. And then we have a refurbished technology program as well, which essentially places refurbished technology in the hands of students who maybe need another computer at school or need a computer at school, but also may also need a computer at home who might not have one at home otherwise. And you can go ahead, Cynthia. So a little bit about the technical assistance that we provide. So from July until about now, or at least through December, we've done about 327 trainings. And that includes in-person trainings, classroom trainings, and webinar, online trainings. We've done about 100, we've published about 113 web-based tutorials. And so like Cynthia said in the beginning, some of the critical components of providing opportunities for learning and growth is to provide it in multiple ways. And so some people really like that face-to-face. Some people like the opportunity to attend something sort of face-to-face like this, where it's live, but you're not actually traveling anywhere. And then it's important to have the opportunity to access information 24/7 when you need it and when you have time to get to it as well. So we publish a lot of what we call Patents TV to our Patents YouTube channel, and that comes out twice a month. We do one on the first Tuesday of the month and the third Tuesday of the month. One of those each month is an assistive tech vendor kind of showcasing their product for about 5 minutes, and the other one a month is it's one of us, it's one of the patent staff, or it's a guest, sort of a guest presenter, a guest interview that we bring in. Then we also have a patents blog, and we do a lot of classroom visits and observations and consultations. And then the last thing that we do is a weekly Twitter chat. So on Tuesday evenings at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time, we do a Twitter chat and it's a different topic each week, but it's always a topic around one of those three things that I mentioned, UDL, AIM, or AT. So that happens 8:30 p.m. on Tuesdays. You can go ahead, Cynthia. All right, and I think I'm doing okay on time so far. So this is specific to the Aiming for Achievement grant that I mentioned, and this is this is the most intensive type of professional development that we do. So we definitely have different tiers ranging from the Twitter chat to a very short webinar, to a classroom consultation, to a full-blown training, to an in-person conference, but this is the most intensive. And what I mean by that is it starts with the application process. And we have districts apply, and a big part of the application process is the 7 AIM indicators, and districts list where they are and where they want to go, and how they see that happening. And so there's not really right or wrong answers to those, and really what I'm looking for is an open mind and a desire to change, and a desire to include all students in all parts of the curriculum all the time. So we select 8 districts that we work with per school year, which is plenty, which is a lot of work, and we always wish that we could work with more districts, but to provide this level of intensive technical assistance, I think 8 is about the limit. And we have 8 specialists. We have 8 patent specialists, so that's sort of where that number comes from. When they're selected, they participate in a full day of orientation, and they all come to in person in Indianapolis to a full day of orientation on accessibility in general, what's Universal Design for Learning, what's the ICAM, what services does the ICAM provide, and what are accessible educational materials. And that happens early in the school year in August, and then they're assigned at that time 2 patent specialists, a lead patent specialist and a secondary patent specialist. And they also do an in-depth needs assessment with each district during that AIM orientation day, which is also based on the 7 AIM quality indicators. And I really encourage them to be super honest with themselves on that and super in-depth. And so the more honest and in-depth they are about where they are currently with the 7 AIM indicators, the more easily their action plan is going to sort of write itself, and the more easily the patent specialists can help them do that. So they then start working on their action plan and schedule meetings. And so they meet, each of those teams meets weekly with the patents, at least lead specialist, but possibly also the second specialist, or sometimes with me. I'll join some of those meetings as well. And that continues through January, and then they all come back together online this time in mid-January, and each team presents for about 15 minutes on their progress. So they have to do a couple of UDL lesson plans. They have to develop their action plan based on their needs assessment, and they have to do a case study or 2 case studies, and where they choose one particular student and sort of create a story of where that student started and how the observation and the process of determining what sorts of materials and accessible technologies and or assistive technologies might help that student, and how that's progressing, and then hopefully where they end up, which is in a place that's much more positive than where they started. So they introduce us to that case study or those case studies during the mid-year gathering in January, and then continued meetings with their patent specialists and trainings throughout the rest of the school year until May. They all come back in May and do sort of a show and tell, which is, kind of going through their triumphs and struggles and how they've done things and why they chose to do things a certain way, and showcase their case studies at that time and any data that they have. So a couple things that we've done a little bit different, and we change it a little bit each year as we learn and grow, and a couple things we've done this year a little bit differently is to have them collect data a little more formally than we have in the past. And so we provide them a Google form in order to provide data to us once a month about what kinds of things are changing in their district that's potentially a result of increased access. And then also we require them to work through a checklist of items in order to get to some free tools that we provide them to provide text-to-speech and to provide a protocol for accommodations in reading, and as well as word prediction. And that checklist includes a couple really important things, and one of them is an accessibility statement on their website, and an accessibility policy in their district office. And those are two things that I really haven't seen anywhere in a district ever, unless we've worked intensively with them. To me, one of the most important things about this process is to develop a sustainable process and workflow for accessibility. And often what we run into is one or two, maybe three people in a district who are kind of in charge of all this, and they make it run pretty well, and then that person leaves and goes somewhere else or decides to do something else, and then they're back at square one. And so having things like the policies in place and which requires bringing administrators on board, which is another key component, that we require them to have an administrator, a special educator, a general educator, and an IT staff on board, and then they can add other people as they choose. Okay.
Thank you, Daniel. So you have, it seems like there's a lot of thought that has gone into your Aiming for Achievement grant process. For how many years have you been offering this grant?
So I think it was called something else, but I believe it started in 2011. And at that time, it looked very different. And since then, we've changed a little bit each year. I would say starting in 2012, it underwent a major overhaul. And then again, 2 years ago, and then again last year, I would say that we've changed major things about it. Mm-hmm. But it's been a long process. And that's another key point, that when we do meet and we have that AIM orientation day, I'm very upfront about with the districts when they come. And I say, we're going to provide intensive help for a year with you, and we're still going to be there to help afterwards, but that intensive help is going to sort of fade off after a year so that we can bring another 8 districts in. But I'm real upfront with them, and I tell them that this really, to make a systemic, sustainable change like this, you're probably looking at 5 years. Anywhere from 3 to 8 years is what the research says, and so I tell them 5. And I think that's really important to be upfront, because this is a lot of work, and this is a lot of work that districts aren't paid extra for. They don't get time off for. They don't have an extra budget for. They have to just do it out of the kindness of their heart, really, and find extra time and resources to make it happen. And so to tell them that, this isn't going to be done after a year, and to encourage them to put things in their action plan that go longer than a year. So even though that action plan for me is really only required for a year, I encourage them to put things in there for 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the road.
Great, thank you. And I know that part of your model too, obviously, is bringing these districts together, and so they make cross-district connections, and so that also can help sustain their continued work beyond that year. Is that they kind of have that cohort, like we have with the AIM best practices work that we do with states. We bring you together periodically to make sure that there's some some cross-referencing. Opportunities to contact information, who's sharing these same types of challenges. And once you have some momentum, having that type of community of practice or even a critical friends, it doesn't have to be anything especially formal. You do know who your allies and who your supports can be as you move forward. So like that as part of your learning opportunity model for Aiming for Achievement.
Yeah, they definitely learn from each other, and we absolutely learn from them.
Great. All right, so we are going off to Ohio. So we have Sarah, Jan, and Rachel. And just let me know when you want me
to start us out. So
okay, go ahead, Rachel.
We're all kind of it's Sarah. So I am with Rachel and Jan actually in the same room. So we're all in our headphones. But so I'm Sarah Boney, and I'm a program specialist with the Ohio Department of Education, and I work really closely here with Jan and Rachel. Jan is the program director at the AEM Center in Ohio, and Rachel is an AIM specialist at the center as well. So go ahead and go to the next slide, Cynthia. So we're going to talk a little bit about how you can find out about professional development opportunities in Ohio, kind of the opportunities that are available from the AIM Center, and then how the format and delivery of these professional developments. So there we do, the center offers a span, like we were talking about earlier, a span of different varieties of formats, different varieties of intensity, very basic to very intense. So it kind of depends on what you're looking for. There's a stop for everybody at the AIM Center. So go ahead and go to the next slide. So here is the website. The AEM Center is actually fairly new. It has been around for about 3 years here in Ohio, and we had some stuff earlier, prior to the center, but this new center is partially funded by the Department of Education, and it's also funded through several grants, grant projects that are happening here. So this is the website, and as you can see, sorry, I'm reading the comment that just popped up, and I need to stop that. So as you can see, there are different tabs that you can click on. One of the tabs there is the Accessible Educational Materials tab, and in there they have basics, the AIM basics, determining a need for AIM, obtaining AIM, tools to support AIM, and specific projects and grants. And so those are things, Jan and Rachel are going to talk a little bit about some of those things that you can visit on the website. And if you want to click to the next one, I'll show you one more tab on the website. So here is our professional development tab. There's all sorts of things that you can look at, like in terms of AT professional development. There's AIM learning opportunities. Ohio is also a recipient of the BEST professional development, which is the Braille Excellence for students and teachers. I should know that. And it is a grant that we have that provides lots of opportunities, professional development opportunities for people throughout our state. And I think Jan is going to start us off and talk a little bit about those. So if you want to go to the next slide.
All right, so I think, one of the messages here is that if you aren't able to afford to do things within your center, within the funding that you currently have, you can also look for grants to help you do some of those things. This happens to be a federal grant that we've been involved with this will be our third cycle of this federal grant. So it's been 15 years, and there are 5-year cycles that we've done with this. And the purpose of the grant is to provide training to teachers and those who would provide services to students who have Braille needs. So every year we do about 22 different trainings. We pull in national speakers, and those trainings range from one-day training events to a couple days to summer-long, week-long Braille training programs too. So there's a lot of different ways that you can learn. We also have some blended types of trainings that we do through this grant. So again, messaging here is that, if you can't do things within the budgeting that you currently have, you can also do some grant work and look for grants that can help to support things that you might want to do. All right, next slide. And then again, kind of leveraging our more limited staffing here, we decided a while back that maybe one of the ways that we could help to infuse information out there to our districts and to make it in just as needed time, 24/7. So whenever somebody had a need for some information about something. So we have about 50 assistive technology internet modules that are online. They're free for anybody to use. And embedded within those assistive technology internet modules, there's about 3 of the modules that would be specific to AIM. So our 2 reading modules that we have, and then also we have an AIM Navigator module that Dinah Carl wrote for us. So we went for experts in the field again to help create these modules, and it provides a really nice opportunity for teachers to be able to grab information that they need when they need it. We've also found more recently that our modules have been used by university programs, which pleases us a great deal, because if they embed those into the university programs, then we can capture people before they even come out and start working in the field, so they have a knowledge of AIM and AT that they can use immediately. So our largest user right now are university programs. Okay.
All right, this is Rachel. So basically when Cynthia was introducing the quality indicator, she spoke about your target audience, and our professional development for educators really focuses on a wide range of people in the educational field. So we try to include related service, administrators, general educators, intervention specialists, educational paraprofessionals, people working in the educational field that might be actually producing formats for students. We really try to be cognizant of everybody in the educational sphere that is working with students who might need AIM. And so when we're developing a professional development, we really try to provide a variety of learning opportunities. And so for example, one of our face-to-face sessions coming up in March is an introduction course on the K-12 and the Mac Connect, and that we did partner with Humanware to provide that training. Another project that we're working on is a general AIM video, and that AIM video is meant to live on our website, and that's going to walk somebody through the process of AIM. So a brief history, how is AIM determined, obtained, and implemented. And we really want to emphasize in that video that AIM can benefit students with and without disabilities, and for students that do have disabilities, students with visual impairments, learning disabilities, physical disabilities. So it's really thinking through how we can provide that video and use it as professional development to really communicate what AIM is and how we can reach learners who need AIM. And then oh, sorry, Cynthia, I'm not done yet. In addition to our professional development for educators,
no rush, by the way. That was not. I took a pause. I wasn't looking at a watch. Sorry.
I don't pause very often, so I don't blame you. So, in addition to kind of looking at that direct, the people who provide direct services in schools, we also have in Ohio 6 state support teams. We call them SSTs, and these state support teams are spread out in different regions of the state. And the AEM Center has the opportunity to work with these state support teams in a lot of really unique and powerful ways. And so there's times that we engage together in professional development surrounding AIM. There's times that we provide professional development to the state support teams, and then they can take that professional development to their regions. And so, for example, we have AT and AIM Center networking meetings, and the AT and or AIM specialist on each of those state support teams comes to Central Ohio, and we spend a day together on what types of professional development opportunities are available. Again, we typically engage together in professional development surrounding AIM. So on those days, we'll have a lunch and learn together as a whole team for the state. And again, then those SSTs are able to take those back to their regions and share that professional development. And then we also have been working really diligently as an organization ourselves to ensure accessibility on all of our websites, anything that's posted digitally. And so we've been working really closely with our partner organizations to provide accessibility training. So we've worked with the Ohio Department of Education. Again, we've worked with our state support teams, and we've worked with other organizations that support education across the state, but maybe don't have that focus on accessibility and reaching all learners. Now I'm ready. Thanks. And then, of course, we do engage in presentations. We, as an organization, attend both state and national conferences. Some of those presentations include providing information on AIM, whether that's through panels or how to create materials accessibly, or how AT can be used to support the use of AIM. We really kind of spread out as a team and find our fields of expertise to provide that information at conferences. And at Ocali, and I'm sorry if this wasn't said before, the AT and AIM Center is part of a larger organization called Ocali. We're one of several centers here. So we have an annual conference, OcaliCon. That date for 2019 is November 20th to the 22nd. It is in Central Ohio at the Convention Center. And if you do want to learn more about that, it's ocalicon.org. But it's really a wonderful conference. We at Ocali say that we support people with disabilities across the lifespan, and we provide support for any type of disability. And so if you're interested in disability in general, it's really a great conference to check out.
Great. Thank you, Sarah, Jane, and Rachel. Oh, are you still?
I have one more. I'm so sorry.
No. Keep going.
Do I have one more slide, if you don't mind?
Oh, you do? Sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. No, that's me.
But it's just a quick slide. It's just to reiterate the importance of formats of delivery and offering quality indicator 4 recognizes the importance of that multiple modes of delivery. And so at the AEM Center, we work really hard to provide professional development through multiple sources, multiple forms, and a range and skill level. And some of the ways we do that is online learning, blended learning opportunities, face-to-face learning, again, those presentations, and then videos that live on our website or other centers' websites. And now I will pause for a while.
I'm sorry, Ohio.
No, please don't be at all.
Thank you so much for that. One of the things I really like about working with Ohio is that I don't think Sarah, Jan, and Rachel said this, but it is a model of that collaboration, the internal and external. So Sarah is at the Department of Education, and then Jan and Rachel are working at the AEM Center, and that works. You know, they are integral to the success of AIM being provided to students who need them within Ohio. And I thought of that. Daniel and John are having a conversation in the chat, and Daniel is asking, John, who in your states, could I connect you with? And there's that example. In order to make this work, you really need to have, cross-agency collaborations to really make sure that this is coordinated and comprehensive. So thank you, Ohio. And now we're moving on to a school district. Jessica?
Yeah. Okay, so I'm Jessica McKay. I am the AT specialist for Ysleta Independent School District in El Paso, Texas. So go ahead and click to the next slide. I'm not going to read through all these. I just want to give you kind of a picture of my school district, because every school district is different across the country, just so you kind of get a picture of what we're working with within the district. So, we're pretty large. We're the third largest in El Paso, Texas, 43,000 students. I'm not gonna lie, some of these numbers, I was lazy and I did not update. So they're from 2016, but they'll probably be relatively the same in terms of the number identified as SPED or 504 or coded as bilingual or ESL. Go ahead and click to the next one for me, please. So a big thing that we incorporated this year was a badge system. So for some of those of you that are familiar, micro-credentialing is becoming a big thing with different schools as a way to help provide an option for PD for teachers. And this was actually created through our innovative learning department. For other districts, they might just call it instructional technology. And so they started this program last fall. And because we are one-to-one campuses, we saw that our teachers really needed some flexible resources to develop those skills on using the tools and supporting the needs of their students. So, we're saying, look, here's all these computers, here's all this tools and tech and resources, and teachers were like, yeah, we don't know how to use them. So they thought the badge system would be a good way to really just kind of hone in, do some quick studies for the teacher, and then also be able to provide proof that they've learned those skills. So as it's indicated on the slide, not all of our campuses require badges for teachers. Some administrators do use it as a way to check up on their PD goals. So when they're looking at, their overall year evaluations, they're saying, okay, what's something you want to work on this year? Oh, okay, you're going to learn how to use Screencastify. So I'm going to be able to see that badge certificate by January. So you'll actually see some classroom teachers will have their certificates plastered all over their walls, or they'll also put them in their email addresses. So when we were working with the AEM Center and they developed the online webinar modules, I was like, oh, this is perfect. This is exactly what we need. How do I make sure that my teachers are getting access to this? How can we kind of push this? And I went to Innovative Learning and they said, oh, let us show you this badge program we have. And that's where we came up with creating badges for those modules. Can you go to the next slide, please? There we go, perfect. So this is actually one of the badges that we created. We designed it over the summer. I worked with Innovative Learning to say, okay, show me your system. What do you need from me? Give me a timeline. So once we made our badges, they showed me the system. I would make the challenge cards just using Google Slides. I would link them to the information to the modules from CAST. And I didn't do anything that wasn't already in that CAST module. So I didn't add any extra work in terms of their practice levels. So if it said, the entry level it's 1 hour, build level was 2 hours. And all I did was I created a Google form for them to then provide evidence that they had completed whatever those tasks were within those 3 levels. So if the entry level was, watch this video and give us your reflection on it, the Google form would just ask them to answer that question. So it wasn't anything extra to the modules. It was just proof of them working through the module. Once I created all of those, they went over to Innovative Learning, which went into their system, and then it automated everything because we just had it all on Google Forms. We used Autocrat. It would just process all the info. The teachers would have to put their email addresses in. So as soon as they had completed it, the system would just then, once it saw all the check marks done, would then send them the email with their certificate, with their badge, and everything was done. And then as you notice, we actually have a partnership with our Regional Education Service Center. So if the teachers complete those badges, we will actually then provide those teachers continuing ed credit as part of their professional development. So in addition to getting lovely digital badges, they're also getting those continuing ed credits that they're going to need for their licensure in Texas. So it was actually a really nice, easy thing for us to do. We just introduced it this past summer. Our teachers got new laptops. Every single teacher in the district got a brand new laptop. So as we're passing out laptops, I'm trying to throw flyers in their face of look at this new program. It's coming out in July. Go to it, go to it. And unfortunately, because there were so many other things going on with their new laptops, the badges got a little lost in the shuffle. We didn't see as many teachers as we had hoped to in terms of going to the system. But what we're seeing now over the year is that people are expressing more interest in it, especially as our district is working with a smart print initiative. So they're trying to get teachers out of printing as much, and they're really trying to push them into making student assignments and ways to interact more digital, excuse me. So we're starting to see people looking around going, wait, how are we supposed to do this? And now we can say, hey, look, if you're looking for this information, it's already there. It's already been made. Just go to it. And go ahead and, nope, never mind. Stay right where you're at. Also, a big development for us this year is our our district is asking us to provide a 1-day summer PD program for every single teacher in the district to receive training on universal design for learning. And so part of that development is going to include different breakout sessions. One of them will be a self-study area where they can go to those badges. But then we're also going to provide a presenter-led hands-on session as well. So that way they'll have those 2 options. So they can do the self-study, or if they want to have that hands-on, somebody walk me through it, hold my hand a little bit, we'll have that for them as well. All right, next slide now. There we go. And then this is just to kind of talk about some of the other trainings that we do with our instructional technology support teachers. So over the past couple of years, I've been working with Innovative Learning during these Engage Me trainings. And these are really just, training of trainers or peer sharing, their campus practices, what's working best for them. It kind of varies depending on the meeting and the setup for that particular training day. But it's really been very useful for us in terms of collaborating with all of the campuses and not really just seeing it as a SPED issue, but as something that can be beneficial to all of their students. And it's really kind of helping us bridge that gap of teachers going, well, that's not my concern because I don't have a SPED kid or I don't have a 504 kid. And really just going no, this is a useful tool. Or look, this is going to make your video so much more effective if you put your captions on. And so it's just been a really nice way for us to get those topics in, not necessarily under the radar, but from a different perspective than just being from a SPED perspective. And I think I'm done.
Great, thank you, Jessica. What stands out for me for quality indicator for something that's unique here is just the extent to which you have, this is a model of that critical component, leveraging your local, state, and national resources. So you tapped into the work of the National AEM Center for the content, and then you customized a training model for your own local teachers. and made it relevant and built it right into something that they're already doing. And you leveraged the extra time that you had. You didn't have to create the content, so you used all of that energy to develop this really motivating badging micro-credentialing system, which I think is really cool. So I'm looking through the chat to see some other questions that may have come in. I know that a question came in about professional development being open to others in Ohio. And I think Jan, Rachel, and Sarah, I know that you were saying that you spoke a little bit to that about what your offerings and how they can be made available to others outside of Ohio. Do you want to repeat that or say a little bit more?
Yeah, any of our offerings are available to anybody outside of Ohio. So if you're willing to make the trip in, we're happy to have you. Some of our things are online, so of course those are available for anybody. And again, any of the things that we mentioned, there's no charge for them, so they're free and available for anybody.
Great, thanks, Jan. And then there was another question, I believe this is for Jessica. Are similar practices available across Texas? So I think this is probably referring to your badging system.
To my knowledge, I don't know that other service centers or anything like that are doing specifically our badging system. We do have a Texas Assistive Technology Network site that is statewide. However, because of some of the changes from the Department of Education, we're not sure where that's going to live or if it's going to live after the end of this year. But I'm more than happy to send you to that website so you can check out and see what's available there.
Great, thank you. And everybody's contact information is in the digital handout, and I also know that Leslie has been dropping everybody's contact information right in the chat. So, please, these presenters are really eager not only to share what they've learned in their resources, but also to learn from others. And are there any questions that are currently in the chat that I may have missed? If I did, if you'd go ahead and just copy and paste it down below. I think I've been making notes as we go along and marking some questions. So I don't want to miss any of your comments. So a little bit of a post-self-reflection as we're waiting for other questions that may have come in. It's a little bit of a post-reflection. The pre-reflection was what are you already doing in your setting, whether you're from a state, from a district, or thinking about this from the perspective of your own school or your classroom. Now perhaps realizing the importance of these collaborations and accomplishing the quality indicators really requires a comprehensive, coordinated collaboration across lots of different stakeholder groups, agencies, people with various responsibilities. What are you thinking now about what your first action will be toward providing learning opportunities and technical assistance for those that you serve? So people are here from lots of different backgrounds and settings. So your stakeholders may be families within your agency. If you're a parent center, you may have a much broader stakeholder group if you're representing a state. Maybe beyond K-12 may also include higher ed. Of course, the AEM Center has quality indicators for higher ed as well. For this series, we're focusing on K-12 just to have a focused context. But what would be a first action that you will take? And of course, this can be it can be small, it could be big. And as you're thinking about that, I'm going to go ahead and move on to letting you know that to support those steps that you are planning to take, the AEM Center is developing a progress monitoring tool to support you. We have funds. We are funded by the U.S. Department of Education's Office of Special Education Programs, and as part of that grant funding, we can apply for extra funds if there is a particular project that we want to pursue. The progress monitoring tool is one of those. It will be an online dynamic tool that will both allow agencies to measure their progress toward meeting the quality indicators, as well as be provided with some education and some teachable pieces around what are the quality indicators. And with the help of some of our friends in states and districts, we'll be including examples, many of which you see as part of this webinar series. But there will be practical examples of how those quality indicators are being implemented in the field, so that people can see that although those, the critical components can be kind of wonky, providing accessible materials to students who need them really is a lot of technical understanding, but then there are a lot of other more complicated, messy ways that people need to come together. So the quality indicators will help to show people the various ways that that's happening, so that they have some models that they can build from. We are in the process of naming this tool, so you can see this on the screen. I have a sunrise in the background, that this is on the horizon, and we have some possible names for our tool, maybe Accessolution, Track Accessibility, Accessible. So we're really looking forward to rolling that out this summer. Upcoming webinars of this series, parts 4 and part 5, we'll wrap it up. Part 4 is on March 26th. Part 5 is on April 2nd. Both of them are at 3 p.m. Eastern. And my contact information is on the final slide. It's also in the digital handout, along with everybody else's contact information. I'm at ccurry@cas.org, and really encourage you to contact the AEM Center, contact our presenters, and come back for parts 4 and 5 to learn more about data, collection, data use, and finally, allocating your resources. And I know that there are many questions out there about how are Ohio, Indiana, and Isleta funding these efforts that they have underway. So part 5 will help address some of those strategies. As Jan mentioned with their BEST program, that they have, they've been provided with, or they have been awarded grant funding to support that. Where do you find grant funding? So that will be part of part 5 of our series. So thank you so much for joining us today, and hopefully we will see you on the final webinar, which is March 26th. Thank you so much.